I'd like to introduce Cookie Lowe. Cookie Lowe's story is an adventure filled with fascinating twists and turns. She triumphed over much adversity and succeeded against all odds to become not only a successful flight instructor, but South Africa's first female airline pilot. Today, she reaches audiences worldwide, inspiring them with her talks and her book titled, "This is Cookie, Your Pilot Speaking," which we have some. Drawing on her own life experiences, she will share with you just a few of the highlights of her exciting journey, showing you how to use your joy as your compass to make your life soar, triumph over adversity, and live a happy, fulfilled, and extraordinary life at any age. Cookie has been sharing her inspiring story, her inspiring journey at aviation conferences, women's conferences, services, clubs, and libraries. Please join me in welcoming Cookie Lowe to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. We start again. It's just amazing where our life can take us if we are determined to follow our passion regardless of obstacles, in which I certainly had to. That picture there is a 29-year-old version of me, and this is a 60-something version of me. Mine is those really crude shades. It's interesting, people often find that as we get older, life becomes less exciting. And I think actually the exact opposite can be true. Because the advantage of getting older, and there certainly are many, is that you're very much more comfortable with yourself, you're very much more confident, and you really don't give a whip what anybody thinks about you. A luxury that comes with age. There was nothing in my life experience that would have predicted where my life would take me or what I would achieve. I didn't land in my crib with a passion for flying, something I've so often been asked when interviewed. Did you always want to fly? No, it was never even on my radar as a possibility. I stumbled onto it by sheer chance going up to do some aerophotography. But when I experienced the flow of flying, I was hooked. My joy had guided me to my passion, and I'm sure many of you can relate to that. Think back at something that really excited you and you thought, wow, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could do that? What did you do with that thought? Did you follow the trail, or did you dismiss it as saying, I couldn't possibly do that? Be very alert to that little voice in the back of your mind. There's generally the logical mind kicking in, giving you all sorts of reasons why you couldn't possibly do that. I'm too old, I'm too young, I don't have the money, or whatever reasons your logical mind comes up with. If I had listened to mine, I would have missed out on so many amazing experiences. You see, I think we never given a dream or an opportunity without also having the ability inside of us to achieve it. Unfortunately, as Brett was saying, we often let our belief limitations and our fears stop us from going after our dreams. The life beyond your wildest dreams lies just beyond your fears, just outside of your comfort zone. And it's so worth getting there. In 1969, with about 80 hours in my logbook, I decided to go for my commercial license. I wanted to get paid for what I loved to do, which was to fly. Having left school at 15, through circumstances outside of my control, as when my father got ill and I had to run my own photography business, which was in Walvis Bay, Namibia. The flying I had no problem with. What was really a daunting challenge for me was how do I pass the written exam for the commercial license. And I was very fortunate to have had incredible mentors on my journey. And my first flight instructor was certainly one of them. With his encouragement, I decided to get myself a home study course. This was back in the 70s. Got myself a home study course, worked through that in my spare time, evenings, working as a photographer during the day. When I thought I was reasonably prepared for the exam, I flew up to Johannesburg, which was the place for the write in South Africa. And when I walked out of that exam, I just knew I had failed hopelessly. And I was devastated. And all my fears about not being good enough, not having the education that it took, not being qualified to do this came up for me. All these very positive self-talk we give ourselves and that we go through when we have failed at something. Now I had a decision to make. I could buy into my very limited beliefs about what I was capable of and into my fears, or I could trust that with my dream I'd also been given the ability to achieve it. It was just going to take a whole lot more work and effort than I counted on. I was committed. I was committed to do whatever it took, however long it took, to achieve that dream. So for me that meant going back to my home study course, working some more on that while working as a photographer in North Australia and Namibia. But when I walked out of that exam the second time, I just knew I had passed. And the thrill I felt and the excitement of having achieved something that I really didn't think I was capable of, maybe, was worth all the time and effort it took. In 1970, I got my first job as a flight instructor. And in 1974, I got offered a job with an airline out of Cape Town. Now, the airline was very aware of the risk they were taking, being the first airline in South Africa to hire a female pilot. So they decided to cover their bases. They would run a questionnaire that the passengers filled in when they came to check in for the schedule. And the questionnaire said, if you were to book in for the schedule of the day, and the pilot for the day was a woman, question number 1, would you assume that if she was hired by the company, she was as well qualified as any male pilot? Fancy that. Question number 2, would you be a little bit reluctant that would have preferred a male pilot? Question number 3, would you refuse to fly? But out of all the questionnaires they got back in the 3 months, there was only one that said, "Typical, I would never fly with a woman. A woman's job is in the kitchen." Can you imagine that today? Well, we all had a good laugh about that. And you can't win them all, but they were happy and I was happy and I was hired. So next time you come across something and you think, wow, wouldn't it be lovely if I could do that? Just go for it. And commit to doing whatever it takes to achieve that dream. And remember that whatever you need to achieve it is already inside of you. And if you need a little bit of help with that, come check to me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Cookie. And a big thank you to all of our speakers today. That brings us into, yes.